Welcome back to the channel. This is the Action Figure Grader, and we're going to cover some recent sales, mainly for mint on card action figures. But as you can tell by this thumbnail, AFA/CIB did have some off-the-wall type of items that were graded by them that you don't see on eBay that much. So, really nice assortment of items. And as always, thank you to my Patreon supporters. They get my videos 24 hours early access. Patreon.com/actionfiguregrader is where you can go to sign up. And I'm pre-filming this video because I'm going to a Yankees-Red Sox game. And it's going to be fun. But I want to make sure to have some content for you guys. And as I talked about in my subscriber Q&A, I owe it to you guys to provide some videos during the busy travel season. And I'm actually really excited about traveling right now because it keeps me from buying anything. If I'm not here and I got a mail hold going, I don't want $1,000 Star Wars items sitting in a USPS warehouse. So in the end, I don't buy anything. It's really great. I did the same thing last summer. I took like 4 months off. So try it sometime. It's really great. And it allows you to kind of build up the coffers again to get ready for some of these awesome items that are at Hakes or anywhere else. So, all right, here we go. We got the Meccano rectangular card, 20 backs, and we had the Kenobi, Obi-Wan Kenobi, as well as the more common Jawa. The Jawa is the easiest to find of these Meccano 20 backs, and this was an AFA 70 with a yellowed blister. No, this one was advertised as a clear. No, it was yellowed. And it's a very nice example though, and it sold for $463.88, which I would argue is probably about right. AFA 80s, UKG 80s, they tend to go in that $600 to $800 range, thereabouts, and maybe higher. You know, once you start getting into higher grades, obviously you could start to approach $1,000 pretty quickly. But I would say for an 80 grade, try to target $700. That would be my target. You're probably going to end up having to pay more than that, but the Jawa is very, very common. It's not hard to find at all. Obi-Wan Kenobi is kind of the next level down. Ben Kenobi and then the Star Destroyer Commander on this 20-back Meccano card are a little more plentiful, or a lot more plentiful than any of the other characters, other than the Jawa. The Jawa is the most common. This one was a 75 plus, again, yellowed blister, 85, 75, 80 were the subscores. That one sold for $633. So very nice example. And that actually went a little bit less than I was expecting. I was thinking more like 800 for this one, but very, very clean overall, just light yellowing to the blister. And here we got the laser pistol. This was a shrink wrapped example of the Star Wars laser pistol, the DL-44. If you want to talk dirty to me, Han Solo's trusted DL-44. And on the AFA label, they show it as shrink wrapped. So I assume that some of these did not come factory shrink wrapped, but this one did. AFA 75. That one sold for $964. So there you go on that one. And we had some die casts that also sold in this auction. So kind of all over the map. I feel like AFA/CIB's dumping the rest of their inventory and trying to get it out there maybe before the Hakes auction. I don't know. But this one was a 75 plus yellowed blister die cast Darth Vader's TIE Fighter. That one sold for $400, 75 plus with 280 subscore. So $400 on that one. I think if that had been a clear blister, probably more like $600 to $650, somewhere in that ballpark. And then they also had the die cast Y-Wing fighter that comes in that box. This one and the Star Destroyer, or the Imperial Cruiser, and there was one other one, the Millennium Falcon, were the three that came in those boxes versus the card backs. That one sold for $460, DCA 75 with a clear blister. Very nice example, and that one includes the bomb you can see there. So that's something to look out for if you're looking for one of these loose complete. Make sure it's got that red bomb, and $460 on that one. That's a pretty good deal. That's a pretty good deal. I think I had a DCA 70 or excuse me, a CAS 70 that I sold, and I got more than that for it. It was more like $600, I think. I can't remember the number, but I might be misremembering. I can't remember. I think I'm sorry. I had the Imperial Cruiser. I had the Imperial Cruiser in a CAS 70 that I sold for around $600 or $700, and that one is a little more expensive than the Y-Wing. And then I also had the Millennium Falcon in a CAS 80, that I sold. I could not tell you what the sales price was on that. I don't remember. But it was around $600 or $700 as well, somewhere in that ballpark. But I don't think I've ever had the Y-Wing mint and seal box. Another rare one that doesn't come off often is the Imperial Troop Transport. This was a lower grade AFA 60, but this was in the Star Wars packaging. That one sold for $961 on 26 bids. This one obviously also came on the Empire Strikes Back packaging, and this one had a refund kind of label there. I don't know if that's standard. Let's see. Imperial Troop Transport, 1979. So it doesn't mention the refund sticker, so I assume they all had that kind of refund on there. But $961 took that one home. And then this was a 21 back A R5D4, graded AFA 75 with a clear blister. Card got a 70, blister 75, figure 85. They did round it to the 75 grade. It was pretty generous 75, just given the card condition. You can see obvious spider veins that were fairly pronounced with obvious color breaking spider veins there. So I was a little surprised that they rounded that up to a 75. Just given that it was so noticeable. But I think if you're looking at it head on, I guess I get it, because it does present very nicely with the two, the blister looks better than a 75, and obviously the figure is nice and still bright white, so maybe you can make an argument that it's probably okay. The back of the card also just had some light scuffing to it, but a pretty nice example for $700. I was thinking maybe as high as $800 on that one, but that was a beauty. And that's about what I paid for mine ungraded. I think I paid $650 ungraded for mine, but it came back with CAS with straight 85s. So that one has moved up quite a bit in the last couple of years since I bought mine. Here's the Biker Scout laser pistol, the Scout pistol. I love the box art on this one. It shows the Biker Scout pointing his Scout pistol at Leia in her Endor combat poncho. And this one was an AFA 70. That one sold for $510. This is one, I talk about this all the time, but this is one that you could probably target ungraded, because they're not terribly difficult to find mint and seal box in this condition. And you're going to pay about, I would say in this condition, probably $400 or $500. This one did have a litho damage there. But I've seen them in better condition than this that are mint and seal box, ungraded, and they sell for about this price, $500. So I think you could probably get one ungraded, roll the dice yourself with the grading companies, and you could probably get a 70 or higher, 75, 80, something like that. So I do like that a lot, though. That's a really cool item. Another off-the-wall type of item is a mint and seal box department store 3-pack with Wicket, Tebow, and Paplu. And again, I don't know why anyone would want this. If I'm going to get the baggies, I want to see the baggies. That's just my personal opinion. No offense if you happen to be the person that bought it. It was an AFA 85. It did sell for $900, but you're just looking at a white box with some, figures on the box art. So I prefer to have baggy, and it goes back to what I was talking about in my my Poppy, Japanese Poppy market analysis video, where I prefer to have the Poppy box next to the paperwork and the baggy versus just the Poppy graded by itself. So that's my personal opinion. But anyway, going back to this one, it did sell for $900. Here's Size Snoodles and the Max Rebo band. This was mint and seal box. It sold for $810. AFA 80 as well. No crease on the flap. $809.99 is a great deal. I mean, this was unpunched. I was shocked it went that low. Now, in all fairness, and one of y'all pointed this out to me that I didn't notice this when I brought it up. The figure score was a 90, but when you go back and look at Rebo, Max Rebo, he has got obvious discoloration to the limbs versus the torso. So the 90 score, in my opinion, does not hold up, and I did not notice that, but I think it was Scott H. or somebody mentioned this when they were looking at this item in my What to Buy video. So you got to really look at the item, because the figure score of 90 probably doesn't hold up. Now, does it hold up for the overall score of an 80? Yes, I think it does, very easily, just given the condition of the box. No crease on the flap. Beautiful condition, really. And I'm one of those people that if one of the sub-scores does not hold up anymore, but the overall score holds up for the item, such as this one, in my opinion, I'm okay with still buying it and even paying fair market value for, something, or even slightly above fair market value if it's something I really want for my collection. So 810 is below fair market value, in my opinion. I would have guessed closer to $1,200, maybe even $1,500, but certainly over $1,000. So I thought that was a really good deal there. Next up was an AFA 80 Lumat, Power of the Force. Yellowed blister, obviously, but just light yellowing to it. It also does have the characteristic Lumat torso discoloration, and that's why it got the figure score of 75. Sometimes AFA will give the figure score an 80, sometimes a 75, depending on how bad the yellowing is. And this one, I don't know. I mean, it didn't look that bad to me, but they did go ahead and give it the 75. So hit or miss there, but I've seen 75s, I've seen 80s when they have that torso discoloration on the Lumat. Just got to, live with it, I guess. I think they're all going to turn that way eventually anyway. It's just how that plastic is. All the Lumats were made in Mexico, and maybe the plastic quality wasn't as good for that particular character, and it just seems like they almost all turn that kind of yellowish brown color. $287.68 on that's a good deal, though. That's a good price. That's a price I'd pay. Next up is Lady Gornish on the Ewoks card. This was the U.S. card, not the Kenner Canada. That one sold for $260. It was an AFA 80. And that one was advertised as clear blister, and it looks like it's yellowed since then. So, again, can you live with that, where it's on the label a clear blister versus, you know that the blister has yellowed? I don't know. I don't know if I particularly care if it's something that I really want, but if it's that noticeable, maybe, that the price reflects it. $260 is fairly low, I would argue, for an AFA 80. I mean, maybe not. I don't know. But that's just something you got to factor in and really, again, buy the figure, not the grade. Those droids lightsabers, I also had in a what to buy video. And they went a little bit less than I expected. AFA 80 red lightsaber sold for $735. And then an AFA 85 green lightsaber sold for $737. So almost the exact same price for red versus green, even though the red was an AFA 80 and the green was an AFA 85. And it's not something I collect. I don't really collect the droids line, but I thought those prices were pretty good relative to what's jiggling around in the back of my stupid brain, where I feel like we've seen some other high-grade examples a couple of years ago that were over $1,000. So those clearly fell under the radar in this auction. Here was another one on my list, my what to buy video. This was a ungraded box flap for the TIE Interceptor, and the reason it was ungraded is because it was missing one of the flaps. And so this was probably during the formulation of the factory production line for the TIE Interceptor, but maybe they made an error, or maybe they just were kind of experimenting, and so it doesn't qualify for grading with AFA because it's missing the box flap. It's not a complete box flap, but it would probably, this is a prototype item, and I was mentioning in my video that it's going to go for a lot less than what a true AFA graded example would go for. So I thought this was a good deal at $629. It gives you a little taste, just a smidge, just a hint of pre-production prototype Kenner items without paying the stupid prices. And, that's something that we talked about during the Jeff Jacobs Hakes announcement, is that are pre-production items going to see an increase in value because of the flood of retail items that are hitting the market next year with the Jeff Jacobs collection? I don't know. Who knows what's going to happen? I think all of this stuff, even the pre-production stuff, is probably destined for price decreases, but I've been wrong before and I'll be wrong again, I'm sure. So I thought that was a good deal at $629. That was a really, really good item. Here is the Secret Star Wars action figure offer, 21 back transition card ESB R2-D2 Solid Dome. And it was a clear blister, ungraded, but looked to be in really good shape. I mean, this was a really nice example. And, is it yellowed? I can't tell. Maybe. Could it be slightly yellowed? It looks clear blister in some photos. In others, this side profile, maybe it's not clear. I don't know. But at the end of the day, my channel is about, trying to find items where maybe they're ungraded and you could send them in yourself and get it graded yourself. And this one I thought was a really nice example that a Patreon supporter picked up that I think will grade pretty well. It would probably grade a 75 or an 80. And at 825, I think he's got some built-in equity there, even though, you got to pay grading fees on top of this. So that's a real nice item, 825. Harder to find transition card on the Empire Strikes Back. And, I paid about this price for my Death Star droid on the 21 back, graded, but, there's no way a Death Star droid on this card back is as desirable as an R2-D2 solid dome on this card back. So I thought that was a good buy at 825. Really, really nice example. And here was another rarity. This one is an apple-headed, I believe, apple-headed Yoda. Let's see. Now, it doesn't mention it in the ad, but I remember specifically sending this to my Patreon supporters as, hey, this is an apple head Yoda. It looks like it to me. I mean, if you look right here, the head is a brighter green relative to the darker green on the hands. And it really is noticeable from a distance. So I think that this is an apple-headed Yoda on I think it's probably a 41 back is what they usually come on. Let's see here. Yeah, 41 back. So that's a pretty common card back for the apple-headed Yoda to come on. And it sold for $1532.99. So I think the market agrees with me on that, right? So very, very cool to see an apple-headed Yoda. It's just a weird factory variant where the head did not match the paint for the hands or the rest of the body. And it's, considered a very desirable variant. Loose graded, high UKG 85. I mean, we saw one that sold 6 months or 9 months ago that sold for insane money. Big money, loose graded. And it was pretty close to this price. I mean, it was over $1,000. I remember that. And this one was mint on card with a slightly yellowed blister or potentially a clear blister, hard to tell. Now, the card was not perfect. It had creases on it and things like that, but it still sold for big money because the market was not dumb. They knew what they had when this seller did not advertise it as an apple-headed Yoda, I don't believe. Does not mention at all apple-headed Yoda. So this seller did not know what he had, and he probably saw that price and was surprised, but he should not have been because it was the apple-headed Yoda. Beautiful example and very cool variant. Next up was the Hoth Stormtrooper on a 31 back, and this one was clear blister and punched example, no price sticker. That sold for $866, about right, quite honestly. I mean, it wasn't perfect card. You can see some scuffing or residue there in the lower right-hand corner, but it's the debut card for the Hoth Stormtrooper, clear blister, and $866 took that home. High-grade examples, AFA 80s. I mean, I've seen them go $1,100 to $1,300 all day long. So that one I thought was a pretty fair price for about a 75 card score. I don't know what it would get overall. Next up is a 45 back Rebel Commander, Hoth Rebel Commander, unpunched, no price sticker, but it had the yellow blister. And it sold for $180.50 as a result. But very cool example there. And I've got a few others before we wrap things up. We got the debut card for the Imperial TIE Fighter palette. Again, yellowed blister. And this is the 47 back. The free 4-LOM offer is the debut card for the TIE Fighter palette. Hard to believe that a figure and a card back as iconic as the TIE Fighter palette only made its debut on the 47 back. But that's the case. And yellowed blister, it sold for $355. You can probably double that price for an 80-ish kind of quality clear blister debut card, easily. Next up was the 48 back Sea Star Destroyer Commander. Again, yellowed blister, but that still sold for $415. So I was a little surprised by that. That seemed maybe a little high. But, 48 backs are in demand. Why is it that every card back that I really like, the 48C, 48B, and the Return of the Jedi transition card 48 backs with the Nyan Num offer, those always seem to go for a lot of money, and I can understand it for the 48 back Return of the Jedis because they are transition cards, low production runs. The 48Cs, even for lesser characters, I guess it's a first 12 figure, so maybe that drove it, but it seems like for pretty much any character on the 48Cs, they go for a fair amount of money. Next up, this was an interesting one. Now, this one came with kind of a letter from Tom Neuheisel, Neuheisel, I don't know how you pronounce his name. He is former director of marketing research with Kenner. And it came with a COA, and it said, this figure was used for a sales test market by our market research department Johnny's Toys in Cincinnati was an independent toy retailer at the time that participated in our sales test. This figure lost its original gold Johnny's Toy price sticker, but still has the orange special $1.99 sticker. Items that were not sold during the test market were accepted back by Kenner. Note, the fact that this card is unpunched but has a retail sticker suggests that it was sold in a dump bin rather than hang display. So pretty cool item, and it didn't sell for anything. No one cared. No one cared that it came with this. So to me, I would have loved to bought this item for $103.50 and then send it in to CAS for one of their custom displays and have this letter included next to it. So that would have been a really cool idea if you're into kind of big custom displays like that. So very interesting sale there, and the fact that the market did not care that it included the COA. I was really shocked by that. And then finally, we had kind of a rough Logray on the Ewoks card back. I just wanted to include a rough one for those of you budget-minded that collect the droids in Ewoks line. I'm looking at you, usual Mike, Patreon supporter and YouTube megastar. He collects the droids in Ewoks line, and this is a perfect example of one to get if you are, budget minded and you don't want to spend a ton of money, because the Logray on this card back is a super expensive item with a clear blister and where the card back is in really good shape. And I believe this is also a Lily Letty, if memory serves. Yeah, you can see there that the card back has got kind of a matte finish to it. And you can see in the lower right-hand corner below the proof of purchase figure made in Mexico. So this is a Lily Letty, just like I believe the Wicket ? And the Logray is a really cool. I actually like the Logray the best of all the Ewoks cartoon figures. I just love how he looks like AFG circa 2015, before I got sober. He looks like he's a drunk loser Unabomber who does not bathe, and that's what I was back in 2015. So anyway, this one, $161.50 on that one. I thought that was a good deal. I mean, that's a good deal for, kind of a rough condition mint on card Ewoks cartoon Logray that, it's not, you don't have to get everything graded, right? This is a good example of an item that fills in a hole in your collection. Look at that card back. This is what I look like, folks. I was 295 pounds, and I was bathing every 3 days, and I was not shaving. I was not a sight to behold, believe me. My wife was very seriously considering putting me on the curb for Chaz in Italy so she can jaunt off without me, and I wouldn't have blamed her one bit if I had not gotten sober and lost about 100 pounds. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. Too much information there, but I thought it would be worth sharing, and I will be back very soon.